Welcome to Portraits of a Nation. Join us as we explore what shapes a country's identity, the people, places, sights and sounds that paint a picture of the world's greatest nations, Ireland. Much of Ireland's modern history was shaped by Michael Collins, affectionately known as the Big Fella. In the 6 years he was a leader of the Irish independence movement, he brought about change that would have ramifications right through to the 21st century. Once a free nation, Ireland had for centuries been dominated by England. The majority of Irish people wanted self-rule, and Michael Collins was convinced that Irish independence would only come about by force. Enormously popular, he was elected to represent Ireland in the British Parliament and became part of a government that refused to operate out of Britain but established its own authority in Dublin, a move that angered England and led to the Anglo-Irish War. Collins established a strong guerrilla and intelligence network, launching surprise attacks against the British spies, 19 of whom were executed in 1920. In retaliation, British troops opened fire on a crowd of spectators at a football match in what was Ireland's first Bloody Sunday. Faced with a seemingly unstoppable war, the British government called a truce and Michael Collins became a key participant in peace talks. The resulting treaty was a huge step towards Irish independence and yet left a sad legacy: the partition of Ireland into the autonomous Irish Free State in the south and the bitterly divided Northern Ireland. Michael Collins agreed to the treaty as a vital first step towards Irish independence, with majority support for his decision. Sinn Féin hardliners, however, resisted, and ultimately Ireland plunged into the 11-month civil war. While visiting troops, Michael Collins was ambushed and killed. Just 31 when he died, he achieved more than anyone else in propelling Ireland on the road to freedom. In the long-running troubles of Northern Ireland, the events of Bloody Sunday plunged the already serious Irish situation into a deadly bloodbath that would last for decades. 14 Derry civilians were killed by British soldiers and a further 14 wounded. The cover-ups and subsequent official whitewashing left a festering wound. The 12-year-long Saville inquiry began in 1998, attempting to finally get some real answers.
Families of those killed on Bloody Sunday don't want an apology, they want the truth. The question now is whether or not they're going to get the truth. And I certainly believe from all of my contacts with representatives of the British government in recent times that this British government really doesn't know what to do about the Bloody Sunday issue.
Despite soldiers claiming they were fired upon first, all of the 14 dead civilians were unarmed. Several victims were shot as they fled or went to the aid of the injured. Of those killed, 5 were shot in the back, 1 was executed as he lay wounded on the ground, and 1 as he tried to crawl to safety.
It was murder. The paratroopers come on here with the intention of murdering people, and that's what they did. It's important that the people who died that day and the people who were wounded that day, it's important that their names are cleared.
The shootings were in a residential area and all the bullets recovered were army issue.
It was a combination of soldiers overreacting, but overreacting in a situation where they felt that their lives were endangered. Nobody has taken account of that on the campaigning side. They simply want to have the memory of all of those who were killed completely and utterly exonerated, without taking account of the fact that there was a gunman there, that it was a no-go area, the policemen had been killed 3 days previously. They don't seem to want to take any of that into account.
Bloody Sunday's victims have finally been cleared, but the pain still lingers. The name Gerry Adams is one that certainly can draw a mixed reaction. For years, he was associated with the ongoing violence in Northern Ireland, as president of Sinn Féin, political face of the notorious IRA. To some, he was a national hero, to others, the devil incarnate. Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher even banned the media from broadcasting his voice, a move that, if anything, only fed media coverage. Although he has consistently denied involvement in the IRA, several people insist that Adams was involved, in particular during the violent years after Bloody Sunday. However, without a doubt, he has been one of the most important forces driving the peace process. In 1979, he began advocating non-military methods, particularly through the ballot box, as a means to achieving a republic. Taking on presidency of Sinn Féin in 1983, he was also elected to the British Parliament, although refusing to take up his seat in line with long-standing policy. Through the 1980s and 90s, he was a key figure in the peace process, culminating in the Good Friday Agreement in 1998. Since then, the situation has largely been peaceful, and Gerry Adams now tends to be viewed more as an international statesman than terrorist.
That we're doing this meeting and that we're taking our facilities up. This is a very, very important meeting, which indeed may be a bit overshadowed by the brouhaha over the facilities, but this meeting is crucial in terms of getting this government to face up to its responsibilities and responding properly to the loyalist killing campaign.
In the May 2010 elections, Sinn Féin became Northern Ireland's largest political party, and Gerry Adams received almost 5 times as many votes as his nearest rival, becoming the single most popular politician in Northern Ireland. What could possibly say Ireland more than St. Patrick's Day? All over the world, people gather a bit of shamrock, kick up the heels and share a tune for the old country. Wherever you find Irish people, the day will be celebrated in some form, grand as can be, with a massive street parade or just quietly swapping yarns with friends. March 17th is the day Patrick, the patron saint of Ireland, died, and for 1,000 years the Irish have honoured his memory with a holiday. Around the world, this is a big celebration, especially in Dublin, but also in America, where a large number of Irish settled after the potato famine in the mid-1800s. Today in America, huge parades are held each year. In New York, 150,000 people march the streets, watched by 2 million spectators lining the pavement for miles. Back home in Ireland, celebrations wouldn't be complete without shamrock, the white clover. Legend has it that St. Patrick, who converted the Irish to Christianity, used the 3 leaves of the plant to explain the concept of the Holy Trinity. Today, the shamrock has become the symbol of Ireland, along with the Celtic harp. It's always been an essential part of the celebrations, collected from the fields to distribute as a good luck charm. Occasionally, bad seasons mean it's in short supply, but wherever possible, the genuine article is picked, packed and distributed for celebrations around the globe. The legend of St. Patrick says that he rid Ireland of snakes, but as Ireland didn't even have snakes, that's a bit of a tall tale. Instead, St. Patrick, by converting the Irish, supposedly rid it of the devil. Whatever, it's a fine excuse for a celebration. The novels and plays of Samuel Beckett turned the literary world on its head. His work was unconventional, avant-garde and bleak, and yet found an instant audience. It appealed, with its dismal characters lost and struggling to find meaning in a world which had no meaning, and his plays inspired the aptly coined phrase, theatre of the absurd.
And he won the Nobel Prize in 1969, and in fact throughout the century he was arguably one of the best known, if not the best known, playwright. And yet his work was arguably the least known. And that's because he's not really producer friendly. You know, he'll make plays that are 12 minutes and 22 minutes. And it became, you know, that the avant-garde students and people like that were doing the work, but you weren't getting the great talent.
As well as the play Endgame, he is best known for Waiting for Godot, the play about nothing, bleak and despairing, and yet deeply engaging, revealing so much of the human spirit.
I do think that from knowing him, he was extraordinary in his ordinariness, you know. And people would think when you sit down with Samuel Beckett, you would be, you know, afraid to put two words together because of this great intellect. He was a very charming gentleman, you know, very, very funny, had an extraordinary sense of humor, very, very good company. And I often think that when people talk about bleakness and despair, you know, you can't be despairing and you can't be bleak if you write such beautiful sentences. And if you are so careful to write English and French so beautifully, you know, that in itself is a celebration and some sort of prayer, you know.
He is one of the great writers of the century, of the last century, and it's just a fantastic thing to finish the century with.
Generations later, Beckett remains a master of contemporary theatre, fresh and original. Poet, author and playwright Oscar Wilde was a man of rare sensitivity, individuality and wit, but sadly way ahead of his own time.
He wrote like an angel. He coined aphorisms that have not only lasted, but are funny too. And he challenged prejudice. He took on the establishment and its preconceptions. He fought, he lost, but in losing, I believe he created much that we can cherish today in being able to overturn those prejudices and those preconceptions.
His life is commemorated in London's Theatre District.
But I flatter myself that it has given me a more rounded impression of him. Neither Oscar the dandy, nor Oscar the homosexual, nor Oscar the playwright, nor even Oscar the serious, but a totality combined of all these elements. Someone who doesn't stand for anything in particular, except perhaps his own humanity. This seems to me the genius of Maggie's work. It has managed to capture a fleeting moment of the man's vitality.
I think he should be remembered, yes, because he was witty, but he should be remembered because wit is truth. And the fact is that it wasn't just, you know, a series of cheap gags. That the things he said are true, and every time you look at them, you see another layer in them. Even the apparently simple truths. I think it's absolutely wonderful that there is this final rapprochement between the maverick Irishman who came over here and made London his adopted city, and who glorified it with some of the finest dramatic works written in that century, and who became a symbol of the new in London, and who changed the fashions in London and was a great sight in London and the Strand and just off here, all the theatre land behind, and then was, you know, ruthlessly punished for his crime. I think it's absolutely typical that it's taken England 100 years to recognise him, but it's happened, and that's the main thing.
When it came to acting, Colin Farrell found his feet very quickly. By the age of 20, he landed a starring role in the successful BBC drama Ballykiss Angel, and very soon went on to other projects. His major breakthrough, however, came with his role as the likeable rogue in Phone Booth.
Cool, I'm really excited, and it was a big challenge, and you know, it was great fun, because most movies take, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 months to shoot. A lot of the big stuff that I've ended up doing in the last few years, and this one was an 11-day shoot. I think I worked 10 days on it. And this is all, you know, this is all hearsay to me. I get the fun out of doing the gig, not the box office, obviously, because most of my films are tanked when that wasn't. But you know, the fun is in doing it, and I had a great time doing it, and I have very fond memories of it, and I got to work with Joel again, so see what happens. Hopefully some people see it.
Colin Farrell's film debut was in the gritty and critically acclaimed The War Zone, followed by the lead in the Joel Schumacher-directed Tigerland. In 2002, he appeared alongside Bruce Willis in Heart's War and with Tom Cruise in Minority Report. But 2003 was to be his big year. As well as Phone Booth, he starred in the successful films SWAT with Samuel L. Jackson and The Recruit, playing the young CIA trainee opposite Al Pacino as the senior and worldly agent. Pacino described Farrell as the best actor of his generation. Finally ending the year with a bang, he appeared in the bank heist comedy Intermission, which set the Irish box office record for a locally made independent film. A variety of successful roles followed, including 2006's Miami Vice, which did big business at the box office, and the critically acclaimed In Bruges, for which he won the Golden Globe Award in 2009. His star still clearly on the rise, Colin Farrell has a busy film schedule for the next few years. Liam Neeson is an actor with an extraordinary pedigree. His roles have been diverse, as well as commercially and critically successful. His early working life was also varied, as a forklift operator at Guinness, a trainee teacher, truck driver, amateur boxer, and as an assistant architect, where a workplace dare launched him on his acting career. Following a successful audition for a Belfast theatre company, he performed in several stage productions before moving to London, where he branched out into film and television, and then to Hollywood, where he shot to fame. Steven Spielberg cast him in Schindler's List, and Neeson's portrayal of Oskar Schindler earned him Best Actor nominations for the Golden Globe, BAFTA and Academy Awards. Another BAFTA nomination came his way for his performance in Michael Collins, along with the Best Actor award at the prestigious Venice Film Festival. Countless other popular films include Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, Love Actually, Batman Begins, Gangs of New York, as well as The Chronicles of Narnia, voicing Aslan the Lion. In 2008, he appeared in the hugely successful action film Taken, playing a CIA operative searching for his kidnapped daughter.
Not more. I mean, I know there is a sex slave trade going on in Europe, and it's intense. But it wasn't the motivating force to do this. You know, there's an aspect to this story that's appealed to the 10-year-old boy inside me, you know, that wanted to drive fast cars and shoot guns and beat up bad guys, you know. That was essentially it.
In 2009, Neeson's wife, Natasha Richardson, died suddenly after suffering a head injury in a skiing accident. Since then, along with spending time with his two sons, Neeson has thrown himself into his work. For almost 30 years, Bob Geldof has been raising money to ease suffering around the world, and he plans to do it for a good while longer.
We err on the side of caution and responsibility rather than rashness and impetuosity, because I want those people to be around 20 years from now. I don't want to just scatter the money. And the responsibility, as far as I read it, and the job, the brief as I see it, is to keep people alive. And the responsibility is to protect the money that people gave us.
He's raised many millions and a few eyebrows along the way.
You know, I'm not interested in rebranding anyone. I'm interested in stopping people dying of poverty. And if any party's policies go towards that, then I can support that policy, whether it's from anything. 20 years ago, I said I'll shake hands with the devil on my left and the devil on my right to get to where we need to be.
He's outspoken and forthright, saying exactly what's on his mind, shaking people out of their complacency and their comfort zones.
Plan B is that we sit with our nachos and beer and watch the Carnival of Death parade across our television screens in full colour and stereophonic sound, the better to enjoy the pornography of poverty every night. That's not the world I want to live in.
Bob Geldof first came to fame with the Boomtown Rats, singing I Don't Like Mondays. In 1984, the Ethiopian famine triggered him to organise the Band Aid recording of Do They Know It's Christmas, raising over £8 million for famine relief. Since then, he's been a vocal campaigner against poverty, raising many millions of pounds and pressuring international leaders to ease third world debt. He certainly has his share of critics, but undoubtedly has made a real difference to the world. For almost 3 decades, Irish band U2 has been one of the most critically and commercially successful bands of its time, recognised all around the world.
No wonder everyone in the city, including me, considers these 4 Dubliners honorary New Yorkers. And today, we are also proud to recognize that honor by rechristening this block on 53rd Street with a new name, at least for 1 week. So starting right now, it's going to be called U2 Way.
Bono's childhood was certainly unorthodox, having a Catholic father and a Protestant mother. When he was 14, his mother died suddenly of a brain hemorrhage, tragically while attending her own father's funeral. Never really close to his father, the death of Bono's mother further distanced the young boy from his only surviving parent. He threw himself into music, and Paul David Hewson became Bono, starting out with a lineup that would eventually be U2. On St. Patrick's Day in 1978, the band won a talent show in Limerick, Ireland. The prize, studio time and money to record a demo. With this, U2 was on its way. Bono has been heavily involved in social causes, beginning with Live Aid, and has lobbied on a range of issues including AIDS, poverty and fair trade. He's campaigned with organisations including Amnesty International and Greenpeace, dealing with several international political and humanitarian leaders. He has co-founded non-profit humanitarian organisations, including the One Campaign, Make Poverty History and Data, and he has twice been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize.